Before we get started, you know DomainTools.com, right? I can type whois.sc/domain name really fast, and I do it daily, but until recently, I didn't know how powerful their other tools were. If I want a domain name, I can set a free alert to notify me when it changes status. If it goes to auction, I can use their sales history tool to find comps and determine my maximum bid. After I buy it and develop the domain into a business, I can set up alerts for any domains registered that contain my trademark, and I can set up registrant alerts of all my competitors so I can keep an eye on what domains they're buying and know what they're up to before they make any announcements. DomainTools.com needs to be in your toolbox like it is in mine. Go sign up for an account today on DomainTools.com. It's free. My second sponsor is David E. Westlow at Wiley Ryan. Imagine having a legal issue like a UDRP or a cease and desist. Imagine having to get an agreement put together quickly for buying or selling a domain name. And imagine going to your family lawyer who just doesn't get it, or one of the expensive law firms in your city who are going to charge you thousands of dollars. Then imagine going to David E. Westlow, who will understand your domain name portfolio and your intellectual property assets, understand the domain name environment, and be able to help you out quickly. David E. Westlow. I trust him, and I suggest you give him a call. The first initial consultation is free. Finally, did the Panda updates kill your organic search engine rankings on Google? Are you now on page 2 or worse, receiving a fraction of the traffic you used to? It's time to visit page2sucks.com. You heard me right, page2sucks.com. It's a Q&A site like Quora or Stack Overflow, but it's focused on helping you get to the page 1 of the organic search results. Go check out Page 2 Sucks, post a question, and get the answers you're looking for quickly. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger, and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the domain name authority and the place where you can learn about the domain name industry directly from the experts themselves. On Monday, June 20th, 2011, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, approved plans that will make sweeping changes to the domain names as we know them. A plan that will dramatically increase the number of generic top-level domains, GTLDs, from the current 22, which includes familiar domain name extensions like .com, .org, and .net. ICANN anticipates between 300 and 1,000 new TLDs could be created under the new program, and they may be available as early as 2013. And every new company thinking about launching a top-level domain under ICANN's new program will undoubtedly be looking at the critical success and failure factors of other top-level domains, most notably the arguable failure of .info and the wild success of .co. Joining us today to talk about the success of .co, top-level domain, is Juan Calle, the founder and CEO of CO Internet S.A.S., the registry operator for the .co top-level domain. Juan's company is about 1 year into its 10-year contract to act as the administrator for .co by the Colombian Ministry of Communication, beating out other big players such as VeriSign. His bid was strengthened by his connection to his native country, which is Colombia. Juan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here.
It's very exciting what you've done with the .co domain name so far. Even before .co's general availability, I read that there were 39,000 domain applications recorded. On launch day, you didn't know if your TLD was going to make it or not. 1 minute after opening the floodgates on July 20th, 2010, people had registered 8,000 domains. By 22 minutes, you had 100,000 domains registered. After 24 hours, you had more than 250,000 domain names registered. And on June 2nd, 2011, you registered your 1 millionth .co domain name. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hearing it from you is it's almost surreal. Yeah.
What do you attribute this phenomenal growth to?
Yeah, that's we've been thinking a lot about that in the company lately, and I think it boils down to 3 very simple things. One, we have a great product. It's .co is recognized around the world to mean company. People easily associate the acronym. We have great technology behind it. So in essence, just at the very core, the core basics of it, we have a great product. The second thing is there's definitely demand. .com has been around for the last 25 years. We know there's more, close to 100 million domain names in .com. There's clearly a need for an alternative to that space, and we're seeing that benefiting us today. And lastly, I would say we've done great marketing. It's worked. So we're very happy about that.
Good. And I'm going to dig into each of those areas because you have done some marketing that nobody else has ever done before, and you've created some phenomenal demand. So before we get into that, I want to ask you, does the growth rate that you've had over the past year, does it meet with the business plan projections that you had before you launched?
I answered that question yesterday to somebody else who asked exactly the same thing, and I'll tell them exactly what I told them. I'll tell you exactly what I told them. If we had registered 500,000 domains in our first year of operations, I would have been extremely happy. The fact that we actually registered 1 million is unbelievable. It was definitely not in our projections.
Great. So during this show, I want to get into your expertise in 3 different areas. I want to talk about the details surrounding the success of the .co domain name. I want to talk about some lessons learned that can be shared with others that are going to be applying for new TLDs. And I also want to find out what your thoughts are on how these new TLDs will affect the domain name industry. But let's start with some background of the .co top-level domain. Who do you target? You've clearly said that .co is an alternative to .com, that people associate co with company. Who do you target with the .co domain specifically?
Yeah, so in what you just described, that's really broad, right? We could go after the entire planet if we wanted to with that statement. But considering the fact that we do have limited resources, we needed to narrow in on an audience that we felt we could reach with our resources, but more importantly, an audience that would benefit .co over the long term, right? In the next 10 to 20 years. We don't expect Yahoo or Google or the Facebook to all of a sudden rebrand to a .co domain. We expect them to innovate in a .co domain, and some of them are doing that. But the real value comes from entrepreneurs, people that are building interesting things that are going to be the Twitters of tomorrow, the Facebook of tomorrow, the Yahoo of tomorrow. So with considering our resources, we decided to focus our strategy entirely on entrepreneurs, on the web development community, the people that are building the next web.
I love that. And that's actually one of the reasons I started DomainSherpa, is because there are hundreds of thousands of new companies formed every single year in the United States alone. There are, magnitudes higher than that, ideas that people have, projects that people are starting, services that people are offering without even being a company. So, having a domain, top-level domain like .co really does benefit an enormous amount of people. So, clearly the premise that you're going to appeal to this niche, this enormous niche, but targeted to begin with, has benefited you tremendously.
Yeah, and let me quantify that actually. In the U.S., I don't remember the exact number, but in the U.S. during 2010, more than 500,000 businesses were started per month. Just new businesses just in the U.S. So if you consider the fact that we're going after a global audience, we're talking about millions of businesses that are starting each and every day. Those businesses, some of them, are going to be looking for options on how to brand themselves online. And we think .co is the perfect alternative for them.
Yeah. And so you have been granted the administration of .co from the Colombian Ministry of Communication. .co is actually a CCTLD, country code top-level domain. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so you are rebranding this country code to be almost like a generic top-level domain.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, Colombia, during a number of years, went through a process of trying to figure out what to do with .co. It had been a restricted space. There were only 28,000 domain names when we took over the operation. And those 28,000 names were largely in .com, .co, so third-level type registrations. And through that process of deciding what to do with .co, they clearly realized that there was some potential to sell .co on a global basis. They also recognized one of the main topics of this conversation today, which is the new TLDs. How is that going to affect a space like .co? So with those things in mind, the government decided that it would be best to look at .co from a global standpoint and not just Colombia alone. And that's essentially, I mean, that evolved into an RFP process, a procurement process. We participated in that process, and we won the right to manage the space for the next 10 years with a renewal option for another 10.
So that makes sense. So do you allow, clearly you allow anybody to register any domain name in the .co top-level domain. Do you discourage Colombian companies only from doing it because it may make search engines view your top-level domain more as a country code rather than a generic top-level domain? Or how do you you know, relate the fact that you're trying to make this into a generic top-level domain, but it's actually a country code top-level domain?
So from a policy standpoint, it functions exactly like a generic top-level domain, like a .biz, like .com, like .info. Now, from a marketing standpoint, what we're doing to consider some of the things that you've just said is .co second-level registration. So, for example, widgets.co. We market that as a global opportunity, as a global option for your branding needs. Now, we've continued to operate .com.co. Those are the third-level domain names. And those we operate purely on a local basis. We market them for local purposes. So that's how we get a differentiation between local needs versus a global domain extension.
Okay, so as part of your contract, you manage .com.co as well as the .co.
Yes, and we actually also operate .gov.co, .net.co. So anything under .co. We operate. We just market them as different products. It's for different audiences.
Gotcha. Okay. And you've said that you target, quote, real use, not speculation. There are more .com domain names that are considered speculation than in real use. What difference does it make that you target real use instead of speculation?
Well, I think I think it's important to back up for a second to answer that question. So the goal is not targeting speculators or targeting a real use. It's really about what's the most effective way to build a global brand, to build .co into a global brand. So to do that, we recognize that we needed to get three things in place. We need to gain massive awareness that the extension exists. So that's what we call the first pillar of our strategy. The second was we needed to get placement in all of the major sales points, so all the major registrars, and very prominent placement in the registrars in order to grow. And then lastly, we needed to get use. People needed to use the domain extension so that it sort of creates that network effect, right? People see it, then they might want to go register it, and it becomes sort of a vicious, a self-fulfilling cycle it creates that network effect. So
right.
Targeting use is really about getting that cycle to start spinning. The people demonstrating that it's being used, other people see it, it creates more awareness allows us to get more growth. That's how we view it.
So that makes sense. So your focus, the three pillars that you mentioned are awareness for the top level domain, getting growth and selling the domain, and then actually getting companies to use them so it drives other people to continue to use the top level domain. So let me dig into each of these three areas.